When I was creating this presentation, I decided to skip 50 slides about Uber, Airbnb, Tesla, and many others, as I really believe and feel that a lot of people are becoming tired of hearing the same examples over and over and over again. And additionally, I really believe that most of these players play a totally different game. Most of these new startups or disruptors are funded by VCs. They get external money. If you think about Amazon, for example, they were 20 years in business before they made their first profit. Secondly, most of these disruptors or startups play on a global scale. If you look at Netflix, for example, the reason why they can innovate so fast and so dramatically is because they have a global audience. If you're a local media player, you cannot innovate as quickly as them. And then the third reason or the third difference is that these startups or disruptors start out digital by default. If you look at Airbnb, for example, they don't have the legacy of all these old hotel rooms that they have to cope with. So they are not in transformation mode. They actually start out in acceleration modus. So it's a totally different game. I think this is a very interesting slide showing the years it took for a company to get to a valuation of $1 billion. If you look at the lower end of the slide, you see Instacart. It took them 1 year to get to a valuation of $1 billion. Twitter, for them, it took 3 years. Evernote, it took 6 years. And then if you look at the upper end slide, you see that traditional companies like Prada or Harley Davidson, they took about 80 or 90 years to get to that 1 billion valuation. But for me, if you look in the media right now, you probably heard that Twitter is laying off 300 people. They have a new CEO, which was the co-founder, Jack Dorsey. And then Evernote is getting in deep shit as well. They were praised for being the startup that would reinvent note-taking. And they were called a unicorn in Silicon Valley. And right now, they are already in deep shit. So they get to valuations of $1 billion very quickly, but they drop down as quickly as well. So I really believe that we are overhyping Silicon Valley for the moment. I think we are talking too much about the disruptors. They are playing a totally different game with totally different rules, and I think we need to refocus. It's like if you want to become a great soccer player, looking at Messi can give you a lot of inspiration on how to play, but you won't become a great soccer player just by looking at Messi. And I think if we look at digital, we need to do the same thing. We need to start hitting the ball. We need to execute. We need to actually develop things and start executing and not be inspired by Silicon Valley. So let's stop admiring all these companies and let's start doing things. And I have a few tips based upon the book that my colleague Joke Dron and I wrote in 2014. It's called Digital Transformation, and I think we need to reorient the debate towards transformation instead of disruption. So what would be the reasons to transform? And I have 3 major things in which I believe that you should really try to bring a transformation. The first one is you need to survive. This is a graph from Standard & Poor's showing that over the last 50 years, the average life cycle of a company dropped from 60 years to just 18 years because there is much more competition through digital. A second reason is by digitally transforming, you can become more efficient. This is an example from the UK government showing that by using technology and using digital transformation, they saved roughly 2 billion euros. And a third reason is to attract talent. Everybody is discussing the war for talent. How can we get to the millennials, Generation C, and so on? And I think we need to take it one step further. I think there's a war coming up for digital talent. And if your company is not betting on digital, if your company is not innovating, you won't be able to attract those young digital talents. So these are the 3 major reasons to transform. And then the question, what do you need to transform? A lot of people ask me, what is your definition of digital transformation? And for me, it's about these 7 layers. There are 7 things that you should transform. You should transform your customer experience, your culture, the business model, your organization, all the internal processes, the leadership and the capabilities internally, and the infrastructure. So, okay, how can you start? If you look at these 7 layers, I think the first thing you need to do is look at the 7 things that I just showed and think where you are hurt most as a company. And you need to tackle those ones first. So how can you transform? If you look at customer experience, I think the biggest mistakes most companies are making these days is that they try to come up with ideas. And I think we need to look at great problems instead of ideas. This is how most companies look at technology these days. So they ask themselves, we see beacons, what can we do with beacons? They see virtual reality, what can we do with virtual reality? What can we do with a mobile app? Shouldn't we invest in drones? And I think each and every of those questions is the wrong question. I think we need to flip it around, because otherwise, if you think about technology as a starting point, you end up with these products. I'm sure you all remember the Segway. I'm sure you all remember Google Glass, which we overhyped as an industry collectively. And I'm sure you're all familiar with Bitcoin. These are all great products in itself from a technology perspective, but there is not a large enough audience that is waiting for these products. Hence, they are not successful. So if your idea failed, it's because it didn't solve an important problem for a large enough audience. And I think this is where most companies are focusing right now. I said I wouldn't talk about Uber. There are 2 slides that I kept in my presentation, and this is one of them. I think one thing that Uber is doing great is that they solve problems. The first problem with taxis is that you have to wait in line before you can get one, or that you have to stand in the rain waving at your driver, and the driver doesn't recognize you, and you don't recognize the driver. And these are 3 major problems that Uber solved through its technology, and that's why it's so successful. It's actually gaining time for us. There's a Belgian startup which just raised about $6 million. It's called Expenditure, and they started from a problem as well. They saw that most companies don't know how to deal with the bonnetjes, so your receipts, and they tried to digitalize that. So they didn't start from technology, they started from a major problem every company is suffering from, and that's why they are so successful. And to make this practical, we created what we call the problem transformation canvas. And I think all of you can use this canvas. It's based upon Alex Osterwalder with his business model canvas. And basically, if you look at the chart, the thing that you need to do is you need to start from the right-hand side, from the problems. So the first thing you need to do is list all the problems your customers have, or the biggest needs that they have right now. Then think about the emotions that you can solve with that. Then think about a solution that could resolve these problems. And then at the last part, think about the technology that is the right technology to solve those problems. So we need to really flip that funnel, think about problems, not about ideas, and not about technologies. And for me, it's also very important that digital transformation is not digital only. It's about being digital first. But there are still very good reasons to do things offline. There are still very good reasons to be in paper. Our book is written in paper because we knew that most people still prefer to read books on paper. So you don't have to pass the reality. So it's digital first, not digital only. Secondly, culture. If you want to transform digitally, you need to involve everyone. When I went to the Next Web in 2011 in Amsterdam, I saw a very interesting presentation from Steve Keel, and he was talking about the zombification of companies. I think there's a lot of companies in Belgium who are zombified in the meantime. I think we need to create back momentum. And there are some ways to create momentum within your company. The reason you need to create momentum is because everyone within your company can have the $1 million idea. By show of hands, who is familiar with Ken Kutagari? No one? He was an employee at Sony, and he was the inventor of PlayStation, which turned out to be a major success for Sony as a company. And I think most of you are probably also not familiar with Paul Buchheit. He was the inventor and creator of Gmail, which turned out to be a major success for Google as well. So you need to involve all your employees. You cannot drive the innovation top-down. And I have an example. If you don't do this, what might happen? I don't know if you know this guy, Steve Sassen. He was the employee at Kodak who invented the digital camera in 1975. And instead of bringing this product to the market, his bosses said, no, we are going to put this back into a closet, because if we bring this to the market, we will cannibalize our own business. And you probably know the story that they went bankrupt a few days later. So you need to create a culture that stimulates and rewards employees to think like entrepreneurs. For me, it's very important to give autonomy, not only autonomy, but disproportionate autonomy. And I think this is where most companies go wrong. I have a very good example from Adobe. Instead of asking employees to come up with ideas in PowerPoint slides, they created this little red box. It's called the Kickbox. And I have put the URL beneath it because they made it open source. And within that box, there is a credit card. And an employee with a good idea can use that credit card to start building his idea. And from the moment that he sees that it's actually working, then he can book a meeting with executives. So they are flipping the funnel, they are giving disproportionate autonomy to their employees. Thirdly, you need to disrupt your business model before somebody else does. I don't know if you're all familiar with the Facebook Little Red Book. This is a book that Facebook gives to all their new employees. And the first thing that they write, if we don't create the thing that kills Facebook, somebody else will. Embracing change isn't enough. It has to be so hardwired into who we are that even talking about it seems redundant. The internet is not a friendly place. Things that don't stay relevant don't even get the luxury of leaving ruins, they disappear. So Facebook, who was a disruptor itself, is now in the know that if they don't keep evolving, if they don't buy Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus Rift, that they might disappear as well. These are 10 hyper-disruptive business models that we have put together, and I'm just going to show you 3. The first one is the subscription model. I think in a digital world, it's very interesting to look how these new players are using subscription e-commerce. HelloFresh is a great example. And if you think about HelloFresh, what could subscriptions mean for your business? For example, I have 2 little kids. My daughter is 3 years old. I have a son of 10 months. And every time I have to go to the retail store to collect Pampers. So I would be very happy if Pampers said, you can subscribe here for 5 years, and we will bring you Pampers every week at your doorstep because they know I will need them. And I don't have to collect them every time again. So think about how this could work for your business. The second one is the marketplace. Alibaba might not be as familiar as Amazon. I highly recommend you to look into how Alibaba works. It's a phenomenal platform. How could the marketplace work for local food, for example? And one initiative in Belgium, which I think is very interesting, is the boerderij, where local farmers can sell their goods directly to the end consumer without having to go through the retail stores. And then a third one is on demand. This is my second slide where I mentioned Uber. In Silicon Valley, there is, in the meantime, a startup which is applying the on-demand mechanisms of Uber to laundry. So today, I don't know how you organize your laundry, but you still have to bring it to the people who clean it. This startup is coming to collect it, they take it away, and they bring it back to your home. Everybody is willing to gain time, and all the principles that are playing up on this on-demand economy have a big chance to win. And I think you need to keep up with the evolutions. This is the Next Web in Amsterdam, for me, one of the best conferences in technology and digital. If you don't know it, subscribe to it. There is a next edition in April coming up. If you can't go, there is a live stream, so I highly recommend that you follow that. And then in Paris, each year, there is Le Web, which is the variant of the Next Web in Amsterdam. And again, by a show of hands, who is familiar with this guy? Okay, very few people. This is the CEO of Uber, Travis Kalanick. And this picture was taken in 2011 when Travis Kalanick launched Uber in Paris. And I'm pretty sure that none of the taxi companies who are now debating the whole thing were in the audience back then. So if you go to Le Web, if you go to the Next Web, you are at least in the know of what is happening. Number 4, about your organization. We need to bring digital into the core of who we are. For me, if I look at my clients, if I look at most companies in Belgium, digital is organized like this. There's like one person who has the responsibility to deal with digital, or a team of 3 or 2 people. And they are not on the top floors. They're mostly some levels down. If we want to transform ourselves, I think we need to bring digital in the core, meaning that digital should be a part of every division and every department. So this is how I see digital transformation. Most companies have today a digital marketing department. who are dealing with mobile, who are dealing with e-commerce, social media, and so on. But we need to take it one step further. Digital transformation is putting transformation horizontally through every department. So what can digital mean for your communication, customer care, sales, HR, and so on? And if you want to take it one step further, I think we need to do this. So today we are at the left-hand slide. Most companies are disrupted because digital is not high enough in the organization, not broad enough. Transforming means bringing digital everywhere. And if you want to accelerate, I think you need to bring digital even around your company in what we call garages. And I have a few examples. You can build your own garages, and that's exactly what Google has done by building Google X, Google Ventures, Google Capital. They know that Google by now is a very big, large company, so they want smaller companies around that are not hurt by the legacy of Google and that can innovate faster. You can also participate in garages. A very good example is Disney. Disney has a fund of $1 million where they fund 10 startups to make sure that they can bring the innovation, disrupt Disney from the outside world. I think that's a very smart move. BMW also has some kind of a program. They even call it the Startup Garage, your partner to get you into millions of cars. So they try to collect startups around them because they know that they can't innovate like a startup. They are a big mothership. And then the third one, if you can't participate or you're not able to build your garages, you can also buy one. I don't know if you're familiar, but bol.com was bought by Ahold, the company on top of Albert Heijn, for 350 million euros, because Albert Heijn knows we cannot innovate like bol.com is doing. We cannot turn around as fast. So instead of trying to transform the mothership, they bought a speedboat next to it. Number 5, processes. I think we need to ship much faster. The big problem today, even in strategy, is that most companies are trying to come up with strategies for 2020. That's the big horizon right now, while we could be dead by 2017. I really believe in a horizon of 2020. I call that the horizon vision. But I think you need a tomorrow strategy as well. As digital is moving so fast, you cannot put up a strategy for 5 years. And we need to include what I call 90-day sprints. It's your magical shipping time. 90-day sprints. So from a concept to execution, it shouldn't take more than 90 days. Most companies today are innovating at a speed of 2 years. They have a concept, then it goes to the IT department, who mostly kill it, then it goes to 10 other divisions, and before it's in the market, we are 2 years later and it's outdated. And this is also what Facebook is saying, again, in its little red book, the quick shall inherit the earth. Fast is better than slow. Those who ship quickly can improve quickly. So most of these startups are talking about MVPs, minimum viable products, meaning products that can ship, that are good enough to launch in the market. Unfortunately, most larger companies define MVPs as maximum validated products, which is the wrong definition. And I think we should change that. This is a very good quote from Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, saying, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. Most big companies should be ashamed and embarrassed about the products that they launch 2 years after date. So what we need to do is we need to realize quick wins, even in the first 90 days. If you start your transformation, it's very important to show people quickly what is changing. And I have a good tip. Paperless is something everyone can do. You should look into your organization. Everywhere you use paper, where it is not relevant, you should cut it out. It will save you money. It will take away irritation at a lot of clients. So paperless is a project that everyone can manage, and that should be something that you can do in the first 90 days. Number 6, leadership and capabilities. I think digital leadership is very important. We need to bring digital IQ in the board. So when Jo and I went to Le Web in Paris in 2011, we were pretty excited because we saw on the agenda that George Clooney was coming to speak. Unfortunately, it turned out to be George Clooney, which was a little bit of a disappointment. But still, the CEO of Forrester made a great point saying, if you can't understand the new world of digital, fire yourself. Build an executive team that is digital first. Make sure there's a techie on the board of directors. If the board has low digital IQ, the company will have low digital IQ. I think that he's 100% right. If you look at Disney, once again, you will see that they try to bring in external specialists. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, is a member of the board of Disney, as is Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook. Steve Jobs with Pixar was a member, and Judy Estrin, the former CTO of Cisco. So they try to involve external specialists to make sure that they feel what is happening in the outside world. Now, external specialists are not enough. I really believe you need an internal leader, and we coined the term the Chief Digital Officer in our book, the CDO, and I really believe it's just a label, but you need something with ownership on digital. This is Atif Rafiq. He is a former Amazon and Yahoo executive, and he is the CDO of McDonald's since 2013. He is saying our objective is to be ready to move at the pace consumers are. And he is not alone. Atif Rafiq has an ambition to grow his digital transformation team to 200 employees in the coming year. And these people are all coming from Facebook, Yahoo, Microsoft, PayPal, AOL, and other tech companies. So you can imagine how serious they are taking this. This is the CDO of the year in 2014, Rachel Haight. She is responsible for everything digital in New York, and she's trying to build the smart city, making sure that data intelligence and digital is becoming a major layer on how the city operates. She says our digital goals are using innovation to better serve constituents and using technology to drive the economy. And this is just one layer of how people in the States are trying to bring digital. If you look at the White House, I'm not sure if everybody has followed this, but Obama has involved a team in which he wants to create what he calls the stealth startup. He has recruited people from Google and Facebook with one mission in mind. They want to reboot how governments work. And this is his director, Todd Park. He has 18 months to gather 500 people in a tech corps to rebuild how the White House works. What we realized was this could be a recipe for something larger. If the tech team succeeds, it could transform Americans' attitudes about government. And I think that's exactly what we need to do in Belgium and in Flanders. And then the last one is infrastructure. It might seem weird, but for me, technology is the last thing you need to think about in your digital transformation. But it's important. It's important to introduce agile platforms, because right now, if you look at most companies, they have like these lagging, fixed, outdated, very expensive, super large systems that nobody uses. I think we need to shift that to agile, cloud-based, user-friendly, mostly inexpensive and faster tools that people actually tend to use more. And you probably know the examples. It's about Google Apps. It's about using Slack, for example, as an internal communication system, which is used, by the way, at NMBS. The whole social media team of NMBS is organized on Slack. Skype for Business. I think we have two Belgian companies which I believe we can be proud on. Showpad, which could be the digital transformation of your sales team. And then Team Leader, they have a booth here, which is a company trying to reinvent CRM for mostly smaller companies, but I believe they can be majorly interesting for larger companies as well. So we need to look at agile tools. So to wrap this up, these are the 7 layers of transformation in which I believe that you should think how you can do differently in the coming years, because I believe we are still in digital kindergarten. The internet these days, it's only 25 years old. The internet in Belgium started in 93, 94, so we are only in this game for 25 years. Imagine what the speed of innovation will be the next 25 years. We ain't seen nothing yet. So I hope that I can inspire you to start your transformation today, not by looking at Silicon Valley, but by actually executing the things that you can do. And the time is now. Most of you still have the time to reinvent, and I would highly recommend to do so. So first of all, forget ideas, start solving problems. Involve everyone in your company. Everybody can have the $1 million idea. Try to disrupt your own business model before somebody else does. Bring digital in the core of your organization, not on the sidelines. Ship it. Create a horizon vision, but also think about your tomorrow strategy. Think about who can claim the role of the Chief Digital Officer and install digital leadership. And last but not least, introduce your agile platforms. And then on a last note, for me, this is also about budgets. most budgets these days are 90% traditional. I think we need to dramatically shift that as well. I think the time is now for digital to go all in. Thank you.